Is that this bill be now read a third time, and I call the member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise today to speak on this bill about integrity in sport as someone who has spent her entire life involved in sport, as an athlete, a coach, someone who served on state and national sporting boards. In fact, my parents were both PE teachers in public high school, and I grew up in Wagga Wagga, which, in addition to being the land of many crows, is the sporting capital of New South Wales. Of Australia. Yes, I take that interjection and I accept it. Until, of course, you have a look at Frankston, the home that I have moved to and embraced and that has embraced me.
Order.
My electorate of Dunkley has sport in its veins. Saturday morning is for basketball, it's for cricket, it's for netball and it's for footy. One of the great things about my electorate of Dunkley is the number of parents that give up their time. They're coaches, they're managers, they run the local clubs, and to them sport is more than a competition. Sport's their community, it's their family, and for many children, particularly in the more disadvantaged suburbs in my electorate, sport is where they find their mentors. It's where they learn the lessons of discipline. It's where they find people who will support them and teach them and help them through the difficult times. And that's why integrity in sport is so important, because it means so much to so many of us. Sport gave me opportunities that I would never have otherwise have had. At the risk of those less educated members of this chamber laughing at me yet again for talking about squash.
We make good life choices.
You know,
We just make good life
when I was 12 years old and I was being picked on by some girls and I was really unhappy and I didn't know what to do, and I went to my father and I was sad and I needed something in my life to help me to get the confidence to deal with being bullied. And my father, being a PE teacher, very handy sportsman, said, well, look, my tennis pennant friends said, we need someone to help to fill in squash. I'm going to go and have a game of squash, never played before. Why don't you come with me, Peter, and maybe it's something we can do together. And from the age of 12, I played squash, and I found in that squash club a community, and I played squash against girls and boys, men and women, and I found something that I was good at, and I found something that gave me the confidence at various times in my life when things weren't necessarily going the way I wanted and I was feeling insecure, that I knew I could go back to. And I also found friends that I've got to this very day who mean a lot to me and who we have a shared history with. If we let sport in this country, let alone anywhere around the world, descend into something that's not much more than an activity for people to make money from, that's not much more than whoever can bend the rules the most can win, the gambling companies can make money off people who are vulnerable, then we are losing something very integral to the Australian way of life. And we're losing something very important to young people sometimes who just need that thing outside of themselves to give them that confidence to go on in life. My father went on, after being a PE teacher and a lecturer at university, to be the director of elite sports at the Australian Institute of Sport for many years. And he used to come home and talk to me about how that was the most amazing job in the world, because he got to work with all of these young athletes from different sports from around the country who were training and working hard and sacrificing to try to be elite, to try to represent their country and to try to achieve. And that was why at the AIS there was such an emphasis on integrity in sport. There was such an emphasis on teaching the swimmers and the athletes and the soccer players the basketballers, why it was important that your success is based on how hard you train, what the attitude is that you take, and not on performance-enhancing drugs, not on whether or not you can bend the rules the most in order to succeed, and is why we've developed in Australia such fabulous athletes. Integrity in sport is so important because more and more we are seeing sport as a vehicle for young women and girls to get a sense of pride and achievement. Women have always been good at sport. This suggestion from some people that, oh, well, women are they're getting so good at sport now and they're getting so much attention. Women have always been good at sport. The best female athlete that we've ever seen in this country, Heather Mackay, the champion squash player, is also one of the best athletes we've ever seen in this country. We've had world #1 squash players. We've had Sarah Fitzgerald, Michelle Martin, Vicky Cardwell. They've always been great at sport. We've had Dawn Fraser, I hear yelling out from the other side. Absolutely. We've had Dawn Fraser. Last week I got to meet Melissa Barberi, former captain of the Matildas. The Diamonds have been absolute role models and leaders in sport for many, many years, and netball is a sport of integrity that some other sports could look up to. Australian women cricketers are the best cricketers in the world, and they are achieving time after time after time. And I am absolutely confident that when we have the T20 in Australia next year, we will see the Australian women's cricket team achieving yet again. Ash Barty. I dare anyone in this chamber to find a current athlete who we could admire more than Ash Barty for the way she conducts herself, for her achievements, bipartisan support, right? And that's why integrity in sport is so important. That's why
Member for Goldstein.
we need to have a tribunal like the one that's being set up so that we can look at the successes of our athletes and know that they are successful, blood, sweat and tears and hard work, like someone as amazing as Ash Barty. The Australian women's softball team this year qualified for the 2020 Olympics next year. I think that's the first time they've qualified for the Olympics since the year 2000. There are female athletes around this country working day in, day out to be professionals, to get equal pay with men, to represent their country and to be role models. And that's what we want our young girls and our young women to be able to see. In my electorate of Dunkley, just last week, the Frankston and District Netball Association received the runner-up in Victoria for the Good Sports Awards. Thank you. Good on them. I agree. It's an association that takes its commitments to the community seriously. So it not only runs competitions, it talks about reconciliation with our First Nations people in our community and has beautiful murals painted by local high school Elizabeth Murdoch College up at the courts as a symbol of respect. It's an association that is part of the local drug strike force team to go out and educate young people about why they should be involved in sport and the healthier ways of living. It's an association that supports girls to go through higher performance programs so that they can play for the Peninsula Waves and they can aspire to be part of the Australian netball team. It's an association that's opened its doors to having men on the committee, on the board, and to having boys playing netball with our local girls, because it's about inclusion and it's about equality. So I'm really proud to have been associated with Frankston District Netball Association over many years, and to be able to stand here and tell the chamber of their success and to hold them up as the sort of club and the sort of sport that is about integrity in sport, and as an example of why it is so important that we protect sport as part of that integral way of Australian life.
I thank the member for Dunkley for